हेलो दोस्तों, मैं हूं आपका अपना ऋषि सर एंड अ वेरी वार्म वेलकम टू ऑल ऑफ यू। आज हम साइंस का एक बहुत ही ज़रूरी एंड ऑनेस्टली अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग चैप्टर समझने वाले हैं। चैप्टर नंबर 6, रिप्रोडक्शन इन एनिमल्स। ये टॉपिक लाइफ का एक मैजिक है, रियली। तो क्या आप तैयार हैं इस मैजिक को समझने के लिए? चलिए शुरू करते हैं।
अच्छा, एक बात बताओ, जस्ट थिंक अबाउट इट फॉर अ सेकेंड। कभी सोचा है कि ये लाइफ, ये जीवन हमेशा चलता कैसे रहता है? एक जनरेशन के बाद दूसरी जनरेशन, योर ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स, देन योर पेरेंट्स, देन अस। ये सिलसिला, दिस चेन, ये कभी रुकता क्यों नहीं? इस एक सिंपल से सवाल का जवाब एक बहुत ही पावरफुल प्रोसेस में छुपा है, एंड दैट प्रोसेस इज कॉल्ड रिप्रोडक्शन।
So, in today's journey, we're going to make 5 important stops. We'll figure out why reproduction is so important in the first place, what are its 2 main methods, how a new life actually begins, what that whole journey from an egg to an adult looks like, and finally, how a new individual can come from just a single parent. Don't worry, by the end of this, sab kuch bilkul crystal clear ho jayega.
All right, so the first and most important question. Why does reproduction even matter? देखो, just like eating food for digestion or breathing for respiration is essential for us to live, right? In the exact same way, reproduction is an absolutely essential life process for any species to continue existing in this world. इसका मतलब बिल्कुल simple है. Think of it like this. If you have a mango tree, its seeds will only grow into another mango tree, right? An apple tree is never going to pop out of it. Reproduction is what ensures that a species, yani ek prajati, keeps going and that similar kinds of individuals are born generation after generation. Simple enough, right?
Okay, so now that we know why reproduction is so important, let's look at how it happens. In the animal kingdom, there are basically 2 main paths or modes to continue life. So what are these 2 modes? Aaiye dekhte hain. As you can see, the first one is sexual reproduction. Now, this involves 2 parents, one male and one female. This method is what brings new variations to the offspring. The second one is asexual reproduction, where just a single parent is enough. This allows the population to grow really, really fast. So the crucial point to remember is this: 2 parents for variation or 1 parent for speed. So let's dive deep into the whole story of sexual reproduction. This is the method we see in humans, cows, dogs, basically in most of the complex animals. And trust me, it's a magical journey, right from a tiny little cell to a whole new individual. Now, this story begins with 2 main characters. The first character is the male gamete. The main parts of the male reproductive system are on the slide, but the most important part here are the testes, which produce millions, and I mean millions, of male gametes. We call these special cells sperms. And always remember, each and every sperm is a single cell. Now for the second character in our story, the female gamete. In the female reproductive system, the most important part are the ovaries. The ovaries produce female gametes, which we call ova, or you can just call them eggs. And just like the sperm, an egg is also just a single cell.
And now comes the turning point of the story. When the male gamete, the sperm, and the female gamete, the egg, meet and fuse together, that magical moment is called fertilization. This fusion creates a brand new single cell called a zygote. Doston, this right here is the very first cell. This is where a new life begins.
Now, this fertilization can happen in 2 ways. When the fusion happens inside the female's body, like in humans or hens, we call it internal fertilization. But when this fusion happens outside the body, we call it external fertilization. This usually happens with animals that live in water, like fish and frogs, where they just release their eggs and sperms into the water. So, fertilization is done, and that first cell, the zygote, has been formed. But what happens next? How does this one single cell turn into hands, legs, eyes, a brain, all of it? Well, now begins the most incredible journey of development. Okay, watch this process closely. That single-celled zygote, it starts to divide, again and again. 1 cell becomes 2, 2 become 4, until it forms a ball of cells. Then these cells start forming groups to create different tissues and organs for different jobs. At this stage, we call it an embryo. And when this embryo develops to a point where you can actually identify body parts, like hands, legs, a head, then it's called a fetus. Just imagine, from a single cell to a whole baby. Isn't that absolutely mind-blowing? So we saw how the fetus develops. Now, how do the young ones come into the world? Well, there are two ways for that too. Animals like humans or dogs that give birth to live young ones are called viviparous, and animals that lay eggs, like a hen, a frog, or a lizard, are called oviparous. Just remember, ovi sounds like ovum or egg, so it's easy to remember. All right, time for a little question for you. Quick, think fast and name any 3 more oviparous animals, egg-laying animals, that you see around you. Come on, type them out in the comments below. I'll be waiting for your answers.
Now, let's talk about a very cool concept called metamorphosis. Imagine some animals, when they're born, look nothing like their parents. This magical transformation, where a small larva goes through some drastic changes to become an adult, is what we call metamorphosis.
And the best example for this is the life cycle of a frog. It starts as an egg, then it becomes a tadpole that looks almost like a fish and lives in water, and then that same tadpole transforms into an adult frog. What a huge change, right? Now here's an interesting question for you. Why don't we humans go through metamorphosis? Think about it and share your ideas in the comment.
So dosto, that was the complete story of sexual reproduction. Now, let's move on to the second mode of reproduction, asexual reproduction. You remember, right? This is the path where you only need one parent to create a new individual.
One type of this is called budding, which we see in tiny organisms like Hydra. What happens here is that a small, bulb-like outgrowth called a bud appears on the parent's body. This bud slowly grows, develops, and then just breaks off from the parent to become a new, independent Hydra. How simple is that?
Another method is binary fission, which happens in single-celled organisms like amoeba. Here, the parent cell first divides its nucleus, and then its whole body just splits into 2 parts right from the middle. And that's it. 1 has become 2. It's literally like making a perfect copy. And speaking of copies, have you ever heard of Dolly the sheep? Dolly was the very first mammal that scientists successfully cloned. Cloning means creating an exact 100% identical copy of a cell or a complete organism. For science, this was a massive, massive achievement.
The chalo, let's quickly revise all the important points. We learned that reproduction is essential to continue a species. It has 2 modes, sexual, which needs 2 parents, and asexual, which needs only 1. Sexual reproduction involves the fusion of gametes, which we call fertilization. And asexual reproduction has methods like budding and binary fission.
The journey of a new life, whether it's a tiny amoeba or a human being, is truly incredible. But think about it. What does this whole process tell us about the connection, the thread that joins all living things together? I'll leave you with that thought. Padhte raho, badhte raho. See you in the next video. Goodbye.